So we all know that social media is a double-edged sword. It can be great for connecting with people and sharing information, but it can also be a breeding ground for misinformation and echo chambers. But what really gets me is how social media affects our brains. So put simply, our brains have been essentially rewired for social media. And virality gives power, even authority, to whoever is able to attract attention. 2, built through the influence of celebrities or influencers, not necessarily experts. If their video gets enough views and engagements, then it will be pushed out to a wider audience. And this is where things can get a bit shady, because there is no regulation around influencer marketing. So there is no guarantee that the influencer has actually tried the product or that the product is even any good. But the fact that there is no regulation also means that there is a lot of opportunity for brands and companies to experiment with new ways of marketing their products. And this is leading to a whole new economy based on virality. And this is where brands and companies come in, because they can tap into this algorithm by sponsoring content creators or influencers to make content that promotes their products or services. And this is not a bad thing in and of itself. Like, influencers have been around since forever. People have always promoted stuff. But what is different now is the level of reach and the level of trust that people put in these influencers. So instead of truth being based on facts and evidence, it's now based on how many people engage with a piece of content. And instead of celebrities or influencers being gatekeepers of information, they are now curators and distributors of information. And this is why so many brands and companies are now hiring people who are experts in social media. Like, I recently read this article in the New York Times about how one brand called Glossier built an entire marketing team around TikTok. They hired a bunch of people who were experts in TikTok, and they gave them the creative freedom to make content that would appeal to the TikTok audience. And guess what? It worked. Their sales went through the roof. And this means that the line between advertising and editorial content is becoming increasingly blurred. But it is also changing the way that we consume and think about information. We are now living in a world where anyone can become famous or influential by creating viral content. And this is both exciting and terrifying. And this is what Van de Geek calls platform logic, a digital logic that prioritizes engagement over truth. And this is where things get really interesting and also a bit scary. We are now living in an age where teenagers are no longer just consumers of information, they are also producers of narratives. And it was a place where people went to share highlights of their lives. Like pictures of their weekend away or their night out. Maybe some, philosophical quote that they found on Pinterest. And the currency of Facebook was really the more likes you got, the more popular you were, at least in that particular post. And this is something that we should really be paying attention to, because the way that teenagers are using social media is very different from how previous generations used it. So, for example, when I was in high school, Facebook was the dominant social media platform. But today, teenagers are using platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, where they are creating short-form content that is designed to go viral. You see, the social media version of truth often is, 1, based on the number of likes, shares, and comments. So here's what I mean. When a teenager posts a video on TikTok, they are essentially putting themselves into the viral algorithm. So, for example, if a teenager sees a video on TikTok about a new skincare product that is made by a popular influencer, they are more likely to buy that product because they trust the influencer's opinion. The key to success in this economy is to be able to create content that is shareable and engaging. So the takeaway here is that the way that teenagers use social media is not only changing the way that brands and companies market their products. And that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.